Rob Nelson, talk show host.
Because you got the 70s thing going there. I got someone's underwear.
Sorry for asking you for help.
Robert Kennedy, thanks for taking a minute. Simple question.
Tucker, it's good to see you. Listen,
you're a Bitcoin maximalist. You're Bitcoin forever.
I hate this central bank digital currency.
Hey, I don't have all the answers, but together, I know we can find them.
Down in competition in the ratings tab for late night week.
hey everybody, welcome to the show. Welcome to Rob Nelson Live. It's a Wednesday night. Well, I'm in kind of a pissy mood. I'm not going to lie. Just life right now. But I will say this. The topic I have is perfect for it. Absolutely perfect because, let me adjust that camera a little bit there. Well, I got my American flag hat on. And here's what I think. I'm gonna make this is going to be a little bit of a different kind of episode. I think we are on the verge of a civil war. There you have it. A cultural civil war. Well, people have said that before. I think we're on the verge of an actual civil war, not just a cultural one. I think we are possibly entering, we are definitely entering a cultural civil war and somewhat of a political civil war. I think we might be entering the pre-territory for an actual all-out civil war. And that sounds extreme, I know, but let me walk you through it. So the cultural argument, the political argument is pretty straightforward, but it's significant because the actual real civil war we had in the United States in the 1860s started with cultural and political civil war. It didn't just start with people like lining up with bayonets and guns and shooting their neighbors across the river, their former neighbors. 2 assassination attempts on President Trump as former president at the time, candidate Trump. Charlie Kirk is assassinated, a major thought leader, political thought leader. And in the wake of both of those attempts, the supporters of them rallied strongly behind them. I believe it got Donald Trump elected president. Turning Point exploded. But you saw the other side doing something we've rarely seen in history, in our history. Cheering. We only heard a few of the snippets of the people you actually heard were leaked out or whatever, wishing someone had succeeded in killing Trump. You know how many people actually said it? Much less thought it? How many people said it to their friends, their family? Probably inside government without, knowing they weren't being recorded. The Charlie Kirk, the absolute delight in his death. People dressing up. The picture Talk to Me Taylor showed of the guys dressed up with the costumes mimicking him and across their gore-covered costume bodies of his dead body was mission accomplished or something like that, or that's just warped. But and we can pick on the warp part, but it's significant that it would happen. It's showing how deep the divide is. It's no longer just, I don't agree with you, you don't agree with me. It's literally, I've erased your humanity. You no longer count. Your life is no longer important. ICE and Border Patrol, let me go to the other side. Entering blue cities and arresting thousands of people. Now, they're all here. Well, the majority are here illegally. And some of them are violent criminals, as Trump likes to point out. But look at the pictures, the images. These guys armed to the teeth, wearing masks and helmets and, basically like camouflage gear, coming in and just grabbing people. And with the protesters, I'm not defending the protesters, but I've also seen enough videos of the protesters. I see the video of those 2 young women who come up, and I don't know what they're saying to the guy, but he just tear gasses them right in their face, like from 2 feet away. I don't care. I mean, unless they're imminent threat to you, if you're a cop or you're a border patrol, you're doing that, you got to be ready for some like hostile words. But it didn't even look like they were yelling at him. It looked like they were kind of talking. But even if they were saying you have a little dick, you don't get to tear gas them from 2 feet away. It doesn't work that way. It's a violent disruption of these communities. Now, is it justified by law to go into Chicago and do this? Sure. And are you mostly getting illegal immigrants who don't technically have the right to be here? Yes. And are some of them really violent? Yes. But are you literally disrupting the fabric of their communities? Yes. And they're, more importantly, not only citizens, but their government leadership. Their local and state leadership is defending against the invasion of the federal agents. They are literally, in Chicago, the mayor literally made it like you can't use any of these areas. I have the ability to prevent you from doing anything in these areas, period, even though you're the feds. Now let's look at the politics. The split inside both parties. I mean, the Democratic Party is fracturing so fast, it's like a California earthquake fault line. It's just like going shoo. And while the Republican Party appears united, it's got some really deep fissures, like things just underneath the surface that are just waiting to blow. And we'll talk more about that. But again, you don't have to look hard to see the Democratic Party just going boom. Republican Party, people or whatever, they're holding it together sort of. But again, you know, the MTGs, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, and the Mike Johnsons, the head of the Speaker of the House, way far apart. The MAGA and the mainstream. There's a growing sense of class and race warfare percolating up. I mean, former Vice President Harris, said the other day she thinks Democrats took black women for granted. Okay. I mean, first of all, Democrats have taken black voters, period, for granted forever. But the notion of how the Democratic Party has looked at race and black people, that's fracturing. And that's my point in that. The class side is exploding. We'll talk about Mandami in New York in a second, but the race side is too. I mean, right? I mean, for years we've heard everything's like, it's racist. It's racist. Black Lives Matter. Everything's racist, right? People putting black squares in their things. And if you're white, you're racist. Math is racist. Like, that was all there. But it's getting to the point where it's almost like it's beyond turning people's brains off. I saw this story. Jordan Childs, who was the black gymnast. I remember this in the 2024 Olympics. She's the black gymnast who originally was okay. So in the Summer Games, I have to look to make sure I get it right. Simone Biles and Brazil's Rebecca Andrade both won first and second place. Initially, they gave the third place medal to Romania's Ana Barbaso. Now, Ana Barbaso is Romanian. She's not black. Okay, not black at all. Brazil's Rebecca Andrade and America's Simone Biles are both black. So originally they gave it to her. The U.S. coach went and complained about the way a scoring had been done on Jordan Childs, and they upgraded her score. So she went from 5th to 3rd. Now, first of all, if you're the Romanian, it kind of sucks because you've just been announced you're going to win. You're thrilled, and suddenly they're like, well, 2 minutes later, technically we changed our mind. You don't get it anymore. It's going to this person who was in 5th place. Jordan Childs, also black, was in 5th originally. She gets moved to 3rd because her coach makes an argument. Then in the very last day of the games, the Court of Arbitration at the Olympics rules that the appeal was submitted. It's a stupid rule. There's a 1-minute time you can, as a coach, go make an appeal, which is so effed up anyway. You shouldn't be able to go appeal. Hey guys, redo. I know you can do like football. You can have the refs look at it again, but it's sort of like redo your score. Like, okay, I don't know. It's a little, I don't know about that. But either way, it's kind of a dumb rule. He's over the coach was over the 1-minute time. Therefore, the appeal was too late. Therefore, the award went back to the the Romanian, the white woman, and taken away from Jordan Childs. Okay. Now all that's complicated and twisted, and what's the point? Well, Jordan Childs is convinced that it's all because of race. She's dead convinced. She believes that people couldn't handle an all-black podium. I'm up there. Yes, it's all black, which is very rare. It's obviously something that people don't like that. People don't like it. So her conviction is, although she didn't win to start with, Then they moved her up, said based on a technicality, but the technicality was what got her up to begin with. They thought the score was should have been judged differently. They did, at a minute to appeal, didn't. So we take it back away and we put the original person up. How is that racist? If you'd been the first one up and they took you down, maybe. If you'd been the first one up and they took you down, you might say that was racist. Like, you took me down. You suddenly just decided to rescore. Give the white woman higher points. You weren't the first one. You got in on the benefit of a rescore, which happened to come too late, so they took you out. She goes farther, though. She goes, a woman of color, I started seeing it more, the racism. They didn't want to see that. They didn't want to see three beautiful black women standing on that podium. They didn't want to see the fact that we were just dominating, and I really took that to heart. That's a kind of racism you can't erase. I mean, and it's funny. She believes there is a clear racism. They don't want to see three powerful black women, and we're fucking dominating you white dudes. That's like the racism going two ways. But the sense of, you talk to so many black people who aren't in the conservative movement, they're going to say, and even black people who are conservative will say, yes, I dealt with racism in my life. There is real racism. But I'm saying we're getting an anti-black versus white, anti-Latino versus black. It's just growing deeper and deeper and deeper. And now it's starting to be Latino and white. These racial chasms, whatever, are just going to go open more and more and more. Look at anti-Semitism and look at Islamophobia. I mean, you know, you've got thousands of college students in America and Kifas cheering for Gaza, but more importantly for Hamas and for Israel to be wiped out. You see the guy who ran by Dave Portnoy the other day, and he's like runs by him. He's doing his pizza review. It's a white dude in Pennsylvania or wherever at a college. And he's like, F you, you effing Jew. He threw a bunch of pennies at him. He arrested the guy, kicked him out of school. Stupid thing to say, but it's sort of like, what? What? He says, people just run around yelling like, you're a Jew, I hate you? Sort of, yeah, that is what people are doing. You know? I mean, that's racism. And yes, there is Islamophobia too. There was since 9/11. And yes, there's a bias against people from Mexico, you know, the brown people, so to speak. There's all kinds of cultural biases. But I'm saying the racism's now getting like next level serious. I'd argue it's more serious than it was when it was more systemic back in the 60s. Because now, like I said, now it's just literally a sense that people have that because of my race, I am being persecuted. It may be true, it may not be. It's certainly true if you're a Jew right now, there's a lot of anti-Semitism. I don't think it's true that Jordan Childs lost her medal because they didn't want to see three black women up there, or that Kamala Harris didn't get elected president because she was black. But it doesn't mean the fact that they think it isn't significant. It's super significant. It's creating this growing divide, deeper and deeper and deeper. Now go back to the parties. Bernie Sanders versus Chuck Schumer. Bernie Sanders is a progressive. He's taking control of the party. Chuck Schumer is a mainstream old school Democrat. Bernie Sanders throwing Chuck Schumer under the bus every interview, every day. He doesn't literally say he sucks. He says, well, I think the leadership's failed. I think it's time for new leadership. Well, I think they're not up to the job. Well, I think they're not listening to the people. Well, basically, yes. Chuck Schumer's done. MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Mike Johnson. I mean, she's up against Mike Johnson all the time. Mike Johnson does kind of what Trump wants, but Mike Johnson's a more traditional Republican. Marjorie Taylor Greene's a true MAGA, true right-wing populist. Kind of like the left-wing populists. It's very different philosophies. She was the only mainstream Republican who came out and said, look, we're responsible for this shutdown as much as the Democrats because, well, they won't do the right thing and stop asking us to negotiate on healthcare subsidies, which, by the way, are all going to go to the insurance companies to pay off their Yes, the consumer won't have to pay it because the insurance companies just get it from us, the taxpayers. Exorbitant, overpriced premiums. That's a whole nother problem for another day. The short answer on a major sidebar is you don't create Obamacare. You create accounts where people can actually negotiate their own insurance. I would love that. I can go in and negotiate my own insurance, be my own CEO, go negotiate my insurance with the insurance company and get the best value for me, because I want something different than you want, something different than a 20-year-old wants, something different than a 90-year-old wants. I can negotiate my own plan, my own amount, and walk away with it. And there can be some subsidy to do that. That's a major first step, but that's a sidebar for another day. MTG is like not in the mainstream of Republicans. That party is, and think about it, both sides do the same thing. Sean Hannity the other day accuses, the mainstream Democratic liberal politicians, the Chuck Schumers, et cetera, not the far left, of caving to the extreme progressive wing of the party, right? And he's basically like the psychotic socialists on the left. They're out of control. They're in charge of their party. They're demonic. They're bringing a reign of terror. They're going to destroy America. They're totalitarianish. They'll lead to the death and the undoing of everything American and the republic itself. Sound familiar? Yeah. What the left says about Republicans. All the mainstream mediocre rhino Republicans, they won't stand up to Trump. They're on bended knee to the monster authoritarian who's taken control with the MAGA people of the party and is going to wreak hell and destruction on America and destroy the republic. Wow. Both can't be true, can they? This is the fissure of a civil war. The mainstream Dems don't have a base. The progressives do. The traditional Republicans may be unified right now, but it's the mega populists that are going to control it. Enter Mandani. Mandani wins the election in New York. People struggling. How did a Democratic socialist, a outspoken, clear socialist, who at least is borderline anti-Semitic, may not be all out, but he's way more pro-Palestinian than he is pro-Israel, in the most Jewish city in the world other than Jerusalem. And he definitely has a whole lot of anti-Semitic supporters and has certainly looked the other way on some pretty anti-Semitic things and said some things that are definitely questionable. How does he win in New York City? Because the issue's really class and power. And Mandani comes in and says, you're all getting screwed by the establishment, and I'm going to unscrew you. I'm going to give you everything free. Now, granted, you're going to have to tax the heck out of people. You're not going to be able to tax the heck out of them. The state government's not going to probably let you do it. But nonetheless, that's what he gets elected on. And a whole lot of people who don't have jobs and don't work and prices are too high are voting for him. Oddly enough, his strongest voting base was educated women in like 18 to 40 range. Which shows you something. You've gone to highly up educated men, you went to college or beyond. And just think about that. Tells you about the indoctrination of our colleges in the last decade or so. It's sort of 15 years, indoctrinating people. It's sort of like, really? So you're now an elite, educated white woman and you have degrees and you think, yes, great idea. Take a system that's never worked, give everything away, give people free food, let people live on the subway, free buses. You know what the buses are going to be? They're going to be homeless encampments. You think the homeless people are going to get off in the winter? You're going to get off that bus. It's free. You're going to get on. You're going to stay. You're going to set up your little corner. Somebody else gets near. You're going to be like, this is my corner. You go pick your own corner. Rent control. It's not going to work. They already have some rent control, but you can't do it across the board. The property values are going to be a mess. Investment's going to be a mess. Price freezes in grocery stores. What you're looking? I was in the Soviet Union and in the 1980s. It's like there's 5 products there. Every one brand. It's the state brand. You're going to do it. Are you going to freeze prices? What are you going to do? Again, limit how much of something someone can buy. You can buy 3 bottles of Diet Coke and that's it. It's insane. But he did it. But once he won, Mr. Nice Guy, who was out for everybody, even the Washington Post editorial board went after him. He did that that acceptance speech, and it was like 23 minutes of just the real Mandani, like identity politics, furious with resentment. Mr. Cool was no longer Mr. Cool. Politics was no longer about unifying everybody. It was about, class enemies, landlords taking advantage of tenants, bosses exploiting workers. He's not trying to increase wealth. He's trying to dole it out to special groups, and Donald Trump is the enemy. That's the warfare we're seeing. You got the oppressed and the oppressors, and that's how Mandami sees the world. That's the basis for a civil war, cultural, political, and possibly worse. So, free childcare, buses, rent freezes, taxes out of control, whatever, Now, we'll see, he's actually sides with the unions when it comes to schools. He wants to get rid of programs for gifted elementary students. In New York City, think about that, public schools. You're going to get rid of the programs that are for the gifted ones? Why? So they have to just stay in school with the stupid kids. Well, that's a bright way to build a society. Let's make sure the gifted kids don't get treated special. Let's put the gifted kids with the stupid, retarded kids and see how that works out. That way we can make sure nobody moves too fast. We'll hold the smart kids back along with the dumb kids. Really? That's how you want to build a future? Well, if you're a socialist, yes. Mao got rid of all the elite, institutions and educators and put them all in work camps. Lowest common denominator. We'll see what he does with cops. Says he's going to keep the police commissioner. We'll see. We'll see. All right. So here we're going to go. Now we're going down the Civil War thing. And then I'm going to bring in ChatGPT. So civil wars really aren't just about a state against a state. They're not just a party against a party. They actually end up posing like families against families. The real Civil War divided the country into two blocks, right? The parties, the Whigs and the Democrats. What are they called? The Democrats? Or the Whigs and the Democrats? What are they called then? Whigs and the Republicans? I don't know. The Whigs and the whoever. The Democrats and Republicans of 1860. It turned families against one another. You literally had brothers fighting against each other in the Civil War in the North and the South. But literally brothers pointing guns at their own sibling to take them out. We're not there with the guns, but you know what? Go home for Thanksgiving or Christmas. I guarantee you, if it's not in your family, someone whose it is, you can't talk politics. Some people won't even invite people in. What's her name? Who just did the thing about how I can't think of her name, who just said that she, Jimmy Kimmel's wife, that she's gotten rid of members of her family. I mean, not killed them, but because she just realized they support Trump, and she tried to convince them not to. And now that they do, she realizes this isn't just about choosing a different politician. This is about a whole different value system. You are no longer part of my world. Well, that's stupid to me, but that's what starts civil war, cultural civil war. You're no longer just someone who disagrees with me. You're someone whose values fundamentally don't align with me, right? Divisions over cultural values, identity, liberty, and economics. If you look at the real Civil War, slavery was a piece of that, but it was the subset. It was a question of freedom, of cultural identity. The South thought their way of life was being attacked. Yes, they depended on slavery to be economically successful, but they also thought their very value system, their very way of life was being attacked. And eventually they were willing to fight to stop it. And both sides hated the other. The North hated the Southerners and their values and how they looked at the world, not just slavery. And the South just despised the Yankees, coarse, crass, unsophisticated. It became values. It became cultural. Well, we're there right now. Whether that goes to violence, I don't know. I saw the movie, Alex Garland's movie, The Civil War. He lays out a scenario where essentially this happens. You have a massive cultural economic divide. California, which is technically a blue state, but if you think about it, California is most the core populations in the blue cities. They don't really control the infrastructure. Fewer people who may be Republican. It's not like it's 10%. It's probably like 40%, 50, 45. Control more of the resources, more of the land, so California teams up with Texas and the western states, takes on the East Coast and the establishment in Washington. That's in the movie. I fantasized, not in a good way, could this happen? Now, January 6th, a lot of people think, well, that was a version of this, right? I don't think so, but I could see how you think that's an example of where it's starting. But I don't think this will start from the right. From the left. I think it'll start from the right. I don't think the left and the protests and all those people are going to take down the Trump administration and start a civil war. I think it will come from the right. Because I could imagine a scenario. Now, here we go. A progressive government, like a Mandami, takes over the White House and both houses of Congress. And they start running their, and I think it's crazy, but what they think is their logical, progressive socialist agenda. Free this, free that, tax this, tax that. They go after it all. They control money. They control power. They just start driving it through on the American people. The conservative right wing, the MTGs, the populists go, you are destroying America. We are not that. We are not a socialist country. We are a free market, capitalist country. You are attacking our values. You don't like our history. You don't like what we stand for. You don't like white people, basically. You're everything. You're anti-American, and you're coming after us, and you're taxing us. Enough. They reject the government's authority. They say you are not legitimate anymore. A little teeny framework you saw with Donald Trump's supporters in January 6th, and Trump himself questioning the legitimacy of the government. But I'm talking all out. They deny the federal government's right to tax them. It's already been a battle over whether the income tax is constitutionally legal. They go, you don't get to tax me anymore. You don't get to make these decisions anymore. I reject your authority. They leave the union. They essentially secede. And what do they do for money? Think about it, guys. Come on, this is an easy one. Bitcoin. Bitcoin becomes their new currency, a separate sovereign currency, digitally controlled, essentially as it's the, I mean, yes, the government can tinker a little, but it's essentially the most protected thing you could have that the federal government couldn't get. You could literally create an entire system, which people are, with Bitcoin. And it would be separate from a central, it's the whole point of Bitcoin, but this would be its own. So they take on Bitcoin and they create it. So if it seems impossible, first of all, think of how quick things change before you say it's impossible. I mean, I look at from when I was at Stanford Law in the 90s, 97, the digital economy, Google, Amazon, Facebook, YouTube, social media, Steve Jobs, the smartphone revolution, all happened. In 1997, nobody really saw any of that happening. Well, the people developing it did. Most people didn't. I was using a Palm Point thing, the Palm Pilot, to put in phone numbers, and people were like, why do you use that? Like, that's kind of stupid. You have to punch it in a little digital screen. Most people didn't even have portable computers. Some did. Not everybody. But it happened fast. Then think even more than that. Think how fast AI is developing. Think 3 years ago. Imagine, could you have imagined? Most people couldn't. And think what we don't even know now. It's going to move fast. Think of it this way. Porn drives technology. It always has. Every technological thing been driven by porn. I mean, not literally every single piece of technology, but every major information technology. I don't care what it was. Technology drives culture. And culture drives politics. And in the world we live in, it can move very, very, very fast. I went to ChatGPT to explore this idea. I was like, how possible is this? I asked who's talked about it. Almost always just in more abstract terms. How a financial economy, Bitcoin could offer an alternate to the central, this, that. No one really had kind of just laid out, well, I'm sure somebody has, but laid out the framework I had, comparing it to the 1860s and showing how it could evolve very fast or along these lines. And here's what I found. A lot of similarities. An irreconcilable cultural, in the Civil War, is an irreconcilable moral vision. And now it's an irreconcilable cultural vision, but they're connected. Regional identity, North and South. Geographic politicization. In our case, it's the blue versus the reds. The Whigs collapsed, the Democrats split. That was then. Both parties in the 1860s fell apart. It was the Democrats and the Whigs, like I said, the Whigs and the whoever. Now we have the same thing. The populist establishment, the progressives and the centrists in the Democratic Party, the populists in the Republican Party and the centrists. The information networks. Back then they had pamphleteers, pamphlets, newspapers, partisan, all of it partisan. Now We have digital echo chambers. It's the same as partisan media. We do have partisan media, but even worse, we have echo chambers. You only hear your own thing. Jordan Childs only hears that black women and Kamala Harris, black women are not liked. Nobody wants a black woman president. Nobody wants 3 black women on a podium. If you're a white person, you're like, what? Unless you're literally like a white supremacist, you're like, that's absurd. I don't care what color you are. Economic anxiety was in the 1860s. You had the new industrial order, the agrarian economy. The South was agrarian. The industrial order was moving faster in the North. Now we have a tech anxiety, right? Automation, globalization, AI taking jobs, deindustrialization, right? We've got the same kind of setup. Now, people could argue, well, we've got institutional inertia, federalism's matured, there's more demographics and diversity. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. And I talked to ChatGPT about this. Delegitimization, when both sides think elections, courts, the media are rigged, what we call a shared reality goes kapoof. Both sides think it's rigged. Both sides think the other side cheats. Both sides think the media's favoring them. Both sides think that elections are rigged. The courts are on one side or the other. Always the other side. There's no shared reality anymore. It's just dissolved, right? Each side begins to justify undemocratic behaviors as a result. Trump and his side acting somewhat authoritarian, the ICE stuff, all that it is. I don't care how MAGA you are, how Trump you are. He's doing things that essentially appear somewhat undemocratic all the time. But so does the left. Heck, look at COVID. They wiped every fucking freedom you had out. And then people get tired and retreat to their tribes. That's the pre-conflict scenario. The Civil War was that. They fought over the ownership. ChatGPT gave me an interesting answer, over the ownership of bodies, today's conflicts, over the ownership of realities. But it's the same thing, the moral core of the republic. Our battlefield wasn't physically with guns. It was in narrative space, right? It's a thing, right? So I asked it, give me a version of how this could happen. It gave me my same version, basically. Late 2020s, economic crisis, inflation spike, debt default, AI-driven job loss, catalyzes a landslide. A progressive left coalition takes over both chambers of Congress and the White House, does wealth tax, universal basic income, funded by the rich people, carbon taxes, aggressive new Green Deal stuff, cuts back on energy development, expands federal control on energy, healthcare, all digital spaces, a CDBC, a central bank digital currencies on there, does a constitutional amendment on voting access, all that stuff. The conservative counter republic reacts. They're like, no, we won't buy it. We won't live under an administrative state. We refuse it. Taxation without representation. We'll resist your federal social programs. You know, we consider them confiscating our wealth, our property. We're constitutionally allowed that. Bitcoin, they adopt Bitcoin and other decentralized assets, saying succession and everything but name. This is ChatGPT's words. And then you see the frontier language coming back. Sovereign counties, constitutional sanctuaries, parallel economies. And then I suggested to it, and they would probably bring Trump. And it said, ChatGPT said Trump or someone like Trump comes back in a shadow federal government forms. Trump would be perfect for that. And I asked it about the Bitcoin. It was like, yeah, the red states could peg trade, payroll, property contracts, all the Bitcoin. We're already seeing it happen. Or any other stable coins, rather than the US dollar. State treasuries hold digital reserves. We're already seeing them. Florida, Texas, already establishing state treasuries in Bitcoin, state reserves in Bitcoin. They could lean into it. And then there's just mass non-compliance to the feds, the IRS, the SEC, just mass non-compliance, like a prohibition era type thing. So you've got the federal dollar zone, according to ChatGPT, controlled, taxed, and regulated. And you've got the crypto sovereignty zone, which is fluid, hard to tax, anyone disillusioned with Washington. ChatGPT said if 10 to 15% of GDP, not of people, but of gross domestic product, migrates to that gray zone, the dollar loses its status, federal tax base erodes, an economic civil war is launched. I just went further. I said, what if, though, it went to violence? And here's where it got interesting. And I said, what happens to the tech elites, right? Because originally it said the tech elites would align with the status quo with the federal government. I was like, except they're getting screwed, and it doesn't really make sense intuitively. And it was like, you're right. It said power becomes too centralized. Even billionaires stop thinking like insiders. They start thinking like escape artists. So yes, in a civil style fracture, the tech elite would split along lines of control versus autonomy, right? The visionary, the paranoid would go toward the outside republic. That's the Elon Musk's, whoever, you know, it wouldn't be left versus right. It would be centralized versus sovereign systems. Those who want centralized will stay. Those who want sovereign will be in the exit. So the tech elite fractures. So Elon Musk, AI founders, Peter Thiel, those guys will all be on the outside, the sovereign side. Okay, so then we got to the last piece of this, what would lead it to be a full split and a full-scale war. It'll be an economic war. It might literally be a secessionist movement. AI will be critical to this. And what I thought was, yeah, but if you had two side-by-side economies, if you had a federal dollar economy versus a crypto-based sovereignty economy, even though the crypto one's smaller, who would win? It's not a hard answer. And it didn't take long for me to ask in ChatGPT to reaffirm. Whoever controls the AI cloud infrastructure, AI is key to this, and whoever controls the data network. You control the AI cloud infrastructure, you control the data networks, you control all financial surveillance, taxation, supply chain coordination, communications, propaganda, cybersecurity. You control all of it. So it's going to be a battle. Technology will be the ground on which sovereignty, the battle for sovereignty is fought. So why does it go military? Because everything models into military applications. AI systems don't stay civilian forever, right? So can you already see it? Musk, Starlink, Palantir, OpenAI, Anthropic, they become quasi-defense actors. Each side, the federal versus the secessionist, tries to get the most compute power, the clusters, the data centers, the satellite bandwidth. It's like chasing down oil fields in the 20th century. Whoever gets that power, that computing power, that bandwidth, that's the new high ground, right? That's who wins. And if you get enough of it, if the other side is getting enough of it, then the other side decides they have to go to war, right? Because it might start with a collapse in the coding and the code base and who owns the data infrastructures and the satellites. But once you get those private defense actors, once foreign powers exploit it, once common resources become hard, like if you can disrupt the other side's grids, water, fuel, one side starts feeling like they no longer are going to survive. And at that point, local law enforcement becomes paramilitary, severe shortages start, you have a tipping point. First, it's tax resistance, against the government, then it's infrastructure decouples, then it's cyber warfare, and finally, the phase 4, it's militarization. You militarize. The government militarizes what it can. The secessionists militarize what they have. And you can go after things like, you don't have to just go after people. You can go after data centers, satellites, ports, go after infrastructure. And then finally, only then would you have a conventional war. And that's kind of what you saw in the movie The Civil War. There was a conventional war with a middle ground, which is kind of like not involved in it. I'm telling you, ChatGPT was basically like, here it is. I'm going to read its conclusion. Your concern is the realistic endgame. Control of AI and infrastructure turns political conflict into a life and death strategic race. When governance legitimacy collapses and one side can weaponize compute, meaning computing power, the logical next step is kinetic action, because people respond violently when their survival infrastructure fails. And that's what caused the first Civil War. The South realized that its entire economic and logical infrastructure, granted, way more primitive than ours, was going to collapse. So they went to war over it. They were completely dependent on agriculture exports and on slaves. And when the North said, we're going to mess with that, the South was like, no. Lincoln's election said it. The federal government was going to restrict slavery and threaten to cut off access to credit, ports, and export markets, all of it. The South was like, you're threatening our very survival. We're going to war. It starts cultural. It moves political. Then it goes through some stages of what I describe as a secession. It's first economic. Then it becomes a divide over who controls technology and data. And then it becomes sort of weaponized in that way, attacking infrastructure and whatever. And then when one side feels threatened enough, it goes to an all-out war. How far away? ChatGPT said the process could start the late 2020s, but you could start seeing it. A possible upheaval, an economic upheaval of some kind that triggers the extreme progressive, all-in government approach that takes over both houses of Congress. A Mamdani in the White House, in both houses of Congress, and a Mamdani on steroids. And from there it goes. I know, I don't have a happy conclusion to this. And AI will be part of it. I would say this. I don't know that we're past the point of no return, but we are heading on a path that certainly seems like we are at a minimum already entering a cultural civil war. We are about to enter a full-on political civil war. And we're going to move, I think, pretty quickly to seeing some of the elements of a nonviolent, actual secessionist type separating, dividing, the party splintering, a whole new realignment kind of civil war like I just walked through. The military part, I don't know, maybe we can avoid it. I don't know if we can avoid the first three. Thanks for listening. I'm Rob Nelson. Have a great night.
Meet Rob Nelson, talk show host.
Because you got the 70s thing going there. I got someone's underwear.
Robert Kennedy, thanks for taking a minute. Simple question.
Tucker, it's good to see you. Listen,
If you're a Bitcoin maximalist, you're Bitcoin forever.
I hate this central bank digital currency.